Avengers! Assemble. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Excelsior, the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers podcast. I'm your director, Christian Buckley. Joining me, as always, is the Apex legend, Jack Martin.
Excelsior, Christian. We played this game together today. That's wild.
Yeah, I know. It's been a long journey, but we finally made it, you know?
Yeah, we finally played this game together again. Good stuff.
Yeah. We, of course, are going to be talking about what's going on with the Tachyon Anomaly event hitting the game this week, as well as in the back half of the show, going over Falcon and the Winter Soldier's finale, and some rumors and leaks about Marvel's Avengers in between it all. But Jack, first, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, same old, really. Just played some Days Gone recently.
Ooh.
I think that game is just kind of good. But other than that, yeah, just same old. How about you?
Doing all right, you know. First dose down, you know.
Hell
so
yeah.
that's exciting. The super soldier serum was found.
And you accepted.
I did, yeah. Willingly, yes, but like, you know, I didn't want to say, you know, I wanted it like John Walker, but there's a big difference here. You know?
It was a responsibility, and you needed to accept it.
Yeah, it's just like Steve, but
Exactly.
with that, though, why don't we dive into Fury's report the way we normally kick off the show, going over what's new in Marvel's Avengers for the week. First up, with the War Table blog, Jack, we'll get to this, but they're reorganizing some things about the weekly War Table blog 34 weeks in.
Whoa.
So, yeah, we can touch on that. But the low power level mission for the game this week is Mistaken Identity. The high power level is Day of the Remains. If you do any of the Harm Room challenges, you'll get Ms. Marvel from 2014, number 4. And hitting the marketplace this week, we have a brand new line of suits, very similar to the line that was debuted with the aerospace suits. So, Jack, let's hear about the marketplace update.
Yes. So, like what you just said, we have a new sort of themed outfit skin across all the characters. I believe they're called the Monatomic Outfits, which is a bizarre name because they are bizarre looks for these characters, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Looking at the... Yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, just like think Rave or like Tron, and then you can picture what these suits look like.
Yeah, apparently our friend Kevin Diaz would probably like these. I know he's a big fan of going to raves, so maybe he'd be interested in these. But these are essentially like LED strip light on skins for all these characters. Like every character is lit up in certain ways. Some of these look cool. Some of them I think are just a little extra in my personal opinion. But hey, at least we're getting another themed universal skin for each character, so that's cool at least.
Yeah, and it's pretty great too that like I think this one started basically right after the last one ended, maybe give or take a week, but like again, we talk about momentum with this game. Even if it's a suit set that like we don't love, I mean, I loved how Thor looked in the aerospace one. I didn't buy it because I wanted to save my credits, but I like how Cap looks here. I'm struggling to remember what Thor looks like in this set, but again, maybe, you know, we'll see, because I think it's a cool concept, because it is very different from everything else in the game so far, skin-wise, but again, talk about that momentum. Even if we don't like these, maybe this becomes a trend where we just pretty consistently get new skin sets for everyone, you know, as a recurring thing pretty much every month.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Even though I don't really like the look of these, I do appreciate how there's a diverse set of sort of uniforms going on for the Avengers. I really appreciate that. I really liked for the most part, I liked the aerospace themed outfits for all the characters. And for me personally, this doesn't really hit for me. I like Iron Man a little bit, but I wouldn't buy 900 credit worth skin. But yeah, I agree. I like the momentum that they're choosing to adopt for all the skins that they're doing now.
Now, did you see my pitch that I said that I wanted to see? I added Play Avengers and I suggested an idea for a skin set.
Ooh, tell me.
I would love to see an Avengers softball team skin set.
Oh, dude, yes.
Right? That'd be so good.
I told you yesterday. I just started Ken Burns Baseball,
Mm,
the 18-hour epic documentary about America's pastime.
absolutely.
I'm in full baseball mode right now, so if I could, yeah, have like a classic, like Captain America in like a classic baseball uniform, dude, I'm all for that. You just made some money.
Exactly. Like, just think about Hulk having like baseball mitts on, or like Thor. I don't know. He has that baseball home run emote.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically there.
I think you have Iron Man in a catcher's uniform with
Mm-hmm.
some boosters.
That
That,
mask.
yeah, exactly. I think that's perfect.
Crystal, please. Please, please.
When, oh, dude, I was gonna say they missed opening day. Opening day was like in April.
Yeah, yeah, they missed
Damn.
that.
Oh
But
well.
I mean, we talked about, you like the aerospace, you don't really love this one. Is there anything that comes to mind for you that you'd like to see them have a themed universal skin set like this?
I don't know. I'm not very creative, so I don't know if I could
Fair.
think of something off the bat. But because these are generally unique skin sets that Crystal Dynamics has made themselves, and from what I understand, it isn't like in reference to anything from the comics. I could be wrong about that, but
Hmm.
it does seem like they are using like this opportunity to make their own unique skins. So yeah, I'm not sure. I like your idea of the Wakandan uniform where everyone has vibranium
Hmm.
armor. I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I'd
But
love
other
to
than
see
that,
that.
I can't think of anything.
Nice. Well, we'll see what they do the rest of the year, because
Yeah,
we got a few, what, 2/3 of the year left, so we'll see what we got left.
yeah. It's booking.
Hmm. But there was another thing that is going on in the marketplace as it stands. There's a sale going on. It's up to 35% off a bunch of stuff in the marketplace. Um, you mentioned to me off air that if the old man Hawaiian shirt Hawkeye skin was in the shop and it was on sale, you'd absolutely buy it. I agree, but it is not. So is there
No.
anything right now that has your attention in the marketplace?
So I was going to buy the regular Hawkeye skin, but I think there's a part of me that's like, out of principle, I don't want to have to pay for this, which is
Hmm.
stupid of me. But I kind of think we should have, been given that skin because we played as that character. But whatever. I was thinking of that skin, which is only like 585 credits compared to
Hmm.
the regular price of 900. But I'm holding out because this sale lasts a decent while, it seems. Um, and I'm sure that skin is just always in rotation, so I'm sure if I ever want it, I can just get it. And I'm hoping that the Hawkeye Hawaiian shirt comes back maybe before the sale ends, and I would 100% buy it.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty smart approach, and that's basically what I'm doing also. And, MCU skins are getting close. I'm sitting on like 2,800 credits right now. I'd like to save as many as I can before I have to dive in and really grind out the challenge cards to really max out my credit inventory because as soon as the MCU skins show up, I need to have maxed out challenge cards so I can take enough of a dent out of whatever my total purchase is going to be for these MCU skins.
Yeah, that's a smart play.
So, speaking of the MCU skins, though, there was a leak via a Facebook page, I believe. Miller posted it on their Twitter account. It was the MCU skin for the Hulk. Did you see this?
I did see this. I actually was reporting on it for the direct this morning. Yeah, it is the Hulk as we know it in Marvel's, as we know him in Marvel's Avengers, wearing the Professor Hulk outfit from Avengers Endgame, which is like him as Professor Hulk doing the sort of like testing, I suppose, in the Avengers facility. He has like purple and black sort of like not armor, but head to toe sort of outfit on.
Yeah, it's like
And
Under
yeah,
Armour.
exactly.
So, what do you think of
I
it though?
was,
Does it look good?
I think it looks good. It looks very accurate to what it actually is. And honestly, I was pretty surprised that this was the skin they were going for. Well, the one that we saw first leak. I guess it makes sense for Hulk, we were talking about this earlier, and you were essentially like, there's no real like definitive Hulk look, maybe aside from like Ragnarok, but that's kind of already in the game. I think we were both on the same page that we were thinking Phase 1 was going to be up front and center. And
Yeah.
it seems to me that if this has leaked and it seems like it's probably ready to go and it will probably be soon, it has me thinking that they're going to release skins for the more recent MCU projects that are more top of mind rather than the nostalgia play of, hey, let's do Phase 1 skins. At least that's how I took this.
Yeah, I took it a bit more because I think you have a good point, but also consider Hulk, right? You said to yourself that we don't really, other than maybe the Ragnarok skin, which is kind of in the game already, we don't have a necessary like look for Hulk that would translate to this game and be like, oh, that's from the MCU, but this one is, you know? So on that level, I could see maybe like they looked at all the different outfits Hulk has had throughout the MCU and they're like, well, the most visually distinctive one that isn't like something that's already in the game is Professor Hulk. So why don't we do that for Hulk? Because I honestly, I think they're probably going to be a little picky and choosy about what character adaptation gets what suit, you know? Like for Cap, I could see them go with Endgame Cap because that's close to the iconic comic look. But I could also see them do like maybe Winter Soldier Cap because that was like Chris Evans' favorite suit or something. I could see them do the Mark 43 from Iron Man 3 because that one's really distinct. I could see, well, I mean, Thor you could go a bunch of different ways with, but probably Ragnarok, you know, with the war paint and stuff like that. But
Sure. I feel like the most realistic thing for them is probably just looking at the character individually and seeing, like what you said, like what's the most striking for this character and what would, grab people's attention. It was a little, I guess for Hulk it makes sense that they went with the Professor Hulk look, but I was taken aback a little bit. Maybe it was because Hulk was up front and no one plays Hulk as far as I know.
yeah,
But I feel like going forward, they will probably time, and we've talked about this, they'll probably time MCU themed skins around the release of their future projects. Like, I think in May or July, we will probably have Black Widow with the white outfit that's going to be coming out in the new film. And then if there are new looks for Hawkeye and for Kate Bishop, when the Hawkeye TV show comes out, I'm sure we'll get skins around that time as well.
definitely, yeah. And I know Kamala Khan is also getting her debut this holiday season, probably like September to December. So I feel like Kamala's skin game's kind of lacking as well. So maybe we get another wave when that adaptation hits. But yeah, I think you have the right approach of like character by character, which one stands out the most that's not like in the game and stands out as an iconic MCU look. So,
Yeah.
People can make predictions regardless. I think maybe slightly keep expectations in check if you're expecting a full blown redesign because like the face model is not changing.
No.
That was the big thing. That's why they had to say inspired by because it's not going to be Chris Hemsworth in the Ragnarok outfit. It will be Thor from this game in the Ragnarok outfit.
100%. Yeah. Like Black Widow's going to look like Black Widow in this game, but she might have the white outfit from the film. And like to me, it seems like they are just doing the same thing that they've done with the comics, except doing it for the MCU. That's pretty much what is going to happen.
Yeah, which I'm completely fine with. I think it's exciting, and I did see some disappointment with the Hulk of like, oh, his hair isn't like, clean cut like Professor Hulk's is in the movie. They were like, it's a disconnect because it's still messy hair Hulk, but he's wearing Professor Hulk's outfit. So like,
Sure.
maybe they could change that, but I don't know if that's a high priority for them right now. Just trying to get the suits out, so expect that to be the case moving forward.
Yeah. Seems soon though. Like there was a video showing like Hulk in the Professor Hulk outfit in like the cosmetic menu, and he was, moving around like in the stationary stance that he was, and obviously it's different standing in a menu rather than playing the game, but I mean, it looked like it was there. It looked like everything was all there. So it seems like this will be in the coming months, I think is fair to say.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure they said MCU skins were debuting in May. So
Right.
I don't know what the extent of those will be, if they're all coming with the Red Room takeover, or if that's just going to be Widow. But I think I heard somebody earlier in the week say that potentially sometime this week we may get our first look at the MCU skins. I don't know if they were referring to this leak coming out or if this was teasing a announcement on the dev stream, which is happening later today as of recording. But I'm excited. I do think you're right. I do think it's close. So I will be opening up the wallet to get a Thor skin probably.
Yeah. Man, I think trying to think of Iron Man skins. Maybe Iron Man 3 Iron Patriot. Actually, or not Iron Patriot. Whatever the Iron Man 3 skin he had, or outfit that he had. I actually really like that, and I feel like they can dip into a lot of stuff from Iron Man 3.
Oh yeah, because I was trying to think, right? Like, cause I think I love the Iron Man 3 suit. I love that it's mostly gold.
Yeah.
I think that is the Mark 43. So I think I could see them do that. That's my bet because everything else is kind of like in the ballpark outside of the helmet of being in the game already, you know? But yeah, I'm looking forward to. Oh, I could also see them do the Iron Man 2 like suitcase skin because that's iconic.
Ooh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, dude. I saw that thing everywhere when I was younger. When Iron Man 2 was out, that thing was all over the place.
Yeah, I'd be
So,
down for that one.
absolutely. Well, in the War Table blog this week, I mentioned they are changing some things up with the way that they're planning to move forward for communication. So I can read this chunk directly from the blog and a couple highlights that came along with it.
Sure.
They said, Spring is the season of renewal, and in this week's War Table Weekly blog, we're changing things up a bit. We'll be starting the blogs off with new content and patch notes when applicable, and the new development updates section. In this part of the blog, we'll be highlighting some of what our teams are working on. It's not everything we're doing, but we wanted to increase communication and let you in on more of what's happening. The updates to priority missions and mega highs will not be at the bottom of the article if you're looking for that. That's talking to me because I always pull that every week. And they did an interview with a community member this week who talked about doing digital photography in the game. But in their development updates section, they detail that Omega level threats are continuing to be tested and are closer to releasable state. They also mentioned that more enhanced nameplates are coming in the future, referring to the animated nameplates from the Tachyon Anomaly event. So, what do you think of this, Jack?
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about this, but I think that's great communication. They're changing it up so that, hey, we're going to let you know more of what's happening. And I think at first they treated communication like hold back until we fully know what's happening and then we'll tell you. And it just obviously didn't work for the game. So I'm glad that they're being a little bit more transparent. And even if they're saying stuff like, hey, this isn't going to be finished soon, but we're working on it, that's great. And it does sound like what you just said. The Omega level threats are being tested as they've always been, and we're getting closer. So even if it's not quite there and we don't have the end goal in mind, I'm glad that they're just communicating more to us.
I agree because the thing is, a lot of the times updates are going to be boring, but as long as we're getting updated, we don't feel like we're being abandoned. So I'm glad that they're doing this, honestly, because I think you nailed it, right? Like they focused first on like, hey, we don't want to disappoint you, so we're just not going to give you information, which is like if there's a game that we all kind of like a lot and we want it to do well and you're not saying a single word, we're going to be worried and lose interest. So, even if it isn't exciting, I'm glad that they're going to be having a constant update stream like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a good move, and I wish it was sooner, obviously, but as long as they're on it right now, I think it's a good move.
Yeah, for sure. And Omega level threats being soon TM, is funny, but maybe in the near future we'll get to see what it is. So, speaking of events coming to the game, there is the Tachyon Anomaly event that is going on at the moment in Marvel's Avengers from April 22nd to May 3rd. Jack, you mentioned you and I got to play a little bit together before we start recording. We both played as Kate Bishop, got a little progress done in some of these objectives. overall, what is your impression of the Tachyon Anomaly event hitting the game?
So, in weeks prior, we mentioned this sort of being a good content update, but pretty small. And I was even surprised that it was as small as it was because it's essentially just the ability to play with friends that are playing the same character as you. And I was expecting the way that they were, marketing this was, hey, you can do that, but also you're getting like new missions to do it or just sort of revamps on the missions that you've already been playing. But you and I just play drop zones to do this because what this ended up being was you get the ability to play with your friends or randoms who are playing as the same character as you or any combination of heroes that you want. And you just basically fulfill challenges in the objectives menu to get the, sort of legendary or heroic and exotic items as well as like nameplates and stuff. So yeah, I guess it's not that big a deal, but I honestly thought we were getting missions involved with this.
Yeah, so because I loaded the game up, right, and I pull up the war table. I noticed they had a new thing on the left side. It was like press square to matchmake with current hero, press X to matchmake with any hero, and there was a bonus. I think it was 10% bonus for XP for doing a quick match on matchmaking. And it's like, okay, cool. They're incentivizing, matchmaking because that's what they're trying to fix and analyze to get the omega level threats out there. But I tried doing that over the icon that told me to do either of those things, and nothing was happening. So I was a little confused. And then I was like, okay, well, I haven't loaded into the game this week, so let me pull up each little area to try and find where this Tachyon Anomaly mission chain starts. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary. I saw the Tachyon Rift missions, and none of those had anything specified for them, and I was like, well, that's weird. Is it in the game? Am I doing something wrong? But yeah, like you mentioned, the mission chains are shown in objectives, and the objectives tab, it basically just creates playlists that you have to queue into. That's essentially what's going on. Because I think there was like maybe 6 different mission chains, and it was like uh, do war zones with another player. For all of them, that was a requirement to progress through that mission chain. Another thing was do team takedowns on dreadbots for one of them. Do I think a villain sector for one, and basically it was just tracking what you're playing in the game. It didn't frame anything in a new way, and it's just giving you guaranteed rewards, which I think is still good because it's like, hey, there's at least something new that's in the game to make it feel a little fresh. And I do think the ability to play with another friend who's playing the same character is still cool and good. Um, and honestly, if that was all it was, maybe it wouldn't feel like an event, but it would still be a good thing. Um, but I'm with you. I definitely thought it was even. I had low expectations, but I really thought it was going to be at least like an expanded version of a Tachyon Rift mission or something.
Totally. I was expecting almost, not too much from this at all. And even still, I was a little taken aback that, it seemed the way that they were marketing this, it seemed like we were getting missions involved with playing as the same hero. Which at the end of the day, since we weren't expecting too much of that, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
What is strange though is that they just added the ability for you to be able to play as other heroes with other players. And the fact that there's a timeline on that is really strange, considering that I think that's kind of an obstacle for them in this game, where a lot of people want to play as a specific character, and they're going to take that seemingly ability away from you in the coming weeks. And it seems, obviously this is way different than what it actually is, but it seems like they just sort of, flip the switch. And it's like, all right, now everyone could just play as Iron Man if they wanted to. And, they have a time frame on this, and maybe by the end of it, they're like, hey, this is just going to be the new normal now. But it's a little strange to me that this is a limited time thing, because it's in the game now, and they're just removing it eventually.
Yeah, so I have to wonder if it was like they're because I think the way they frame it when they announced it that it was limited time is like, oh, we're gonna see how this goes, maybe make sure nothing breaks. But as far as I could tell from you and I's brief session together, we played about like 20 minutes, 25. Um, we both played as Kate. There was no real issue with anything of like combat or I didn't feel like it was skewed one way or the other. We were about parity with our power levels for Kate. So I'm with you. It's definitely weird that it's a limited event now, seeing what the offering is. But I want to ask as a follow up, sort of taking a step back on this. Does this paint your expectations differently for the coming events, like the Red Room Challenge or anything that could be coming to the game that isn't a character or operation?
I guess in a way, but at the same time, since pretty much launch, expectations have been, consistently lowered and, met and kept in check for months at this point. And that said, like, I didn't really expect too much from this, and my expectations kind of weren't even met, because we didn't get what we thought we were getting in terms of like even like a variation on missions we've already done, and we didn't even get that. So my expectations have always been sort of lowered for the new content that's coming out for this game, and it still is. But yeah, even with this, like we really didn't get all that much, and I guess now that you framed it that way, I guess I know what to expect specifically for the Red Room takeover. I think we're just getting a literal red harm room. I think that's what it is, and it's like, hey, run the Red Room 10 times, and you'll get a nameplate or something like that. I
Yeah,
think I think that's what to expect now, essentially.
because I think at the very least I was expecting on like the Quinjet flight to a mission to hear some sort of narration from like one of the disembodied voice characters like Maria Hill or Jarvis, like
Yeah.
saying like, "Oh, there's this new Tachyon problem" and stuff like that, just to frame it in a way. Because I know for the Red Room they did say, I think Yelena, Florence Pugh's character in this take on the Avengers, is gonna have sway over what's going on with the Red Room takeover. So I don't know if they're gonna have dialogue for her or what, but yeah, very very interesting stuff about this. Do you think you're gonna play more? Do you think you're gonna fill out these mission chains? Because you got 2 weeks, so.
Um, if you stream some things on Twitch,
Hmm.
and if you ever want to jump in and stream this, I'd be down to do it. I think that would probably be the only way I would actually go out and do these challenges, because it does require you to play with people, and that's something
Yeah.
that I should have mentioned earlier. I do like how this, through its challenges, does incentivize playing with others. I think that's great. It's
Hmm.
sorely what this game needs, even though there's absolutely no new content associated with it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that would probably be the only way, is me jumping back in with you.
Yeah, I think I'll probably end up doing the same thing, because yeah, as much as I play this game solo, the fact that it is pushing for multiplayer is probably a good thing because that's what they want the game to be. So maybe people are swayed into doing that, and then they're like, oh, you know what, this multiplayer thing's not that bad. But at the same beat, what happens when suddenly they go to matchmaking? It's like, sorry, you can't be Hulk today. Like,
Yeah.
it's a weird space. I'm curious to see what the aftermath of this event is. But we will have to see. Because meanwhile, got some other stuff going on in the Marvel Universe. Specifically, we got a trailer and poster for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Hell yeah,
Thoughts?
we did. This looks amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's everything we kind of want it to be. Like, we were talking about this maybe a few weeks ago, and it just looks like it has some incredible hand-to-hand action, and that's all I want from this movie. And even in the bit of the trailer we got some great choreographed set pieces, and I'm 100% in on this movie.
Yeah, I am super stoked. When we did our 2021 Marvel preview, it was kind of up there for one of my most anticipated projects. But yeah, I was super happy to see the trailer deliver on the promise of making this awesome adventure movie with this brand new character that nobody really seems that familiar with. So it's going to be pretty fresh for a lot of people going in. I think if redoing the Mandarin, but doing the real Mandarin is very interesting. And I love a good origin story movie, you know? So seeing the origins of Shang-Chi is going to be pretty dope when it comes out because that trailer, I agree, was pretty awesome.
Yeah, totally. And we're going back to San Francisco in some parts of this movie, so I think that's cool.
Yeah. So I wonder if we get a little Paul Rudd cameo or something.
Jimmy Woo, I know he's we last saw him in New Jersey, but hey,
hmm
I mean it would seem like he had a lot of business in San Francisco, so that'd be cool.
Yeah.
What do you think about the outfit for Shang-Chi?
So I think on the poster it looked good, but in action I didn't really notice it. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Did it not work for you?
it didn't like not work for me, but it just seemed sort of, I don't want to say generic, but it seemed like standard Marvel fare in a way,
hmm
and which is fine. I think it works. I think it looks pretty streamlined, but at the same time, it was like, oh, I could see that outfit being for like um, the guard of the, I don't know, any sort of hero that has like guards associated with them. If like that was
Sure.
the uniform for them, I'd be like, sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, that doesn't hold too much for me. I think he looks good in that outfit. It just doesn't look, I wasn't wowed by it, I'll say.
I did love in the trailer though the yellow jacket. I hope he's rocking that for the majority of the movie.
Oh, wait, can you remind me? When did that come up?
It's I think he's like in a warehouse with two other people and they're looking up at something, and he's wearing like a yellow jacket with a black stripe on it. Like it looks like a
Oh,
track jacket. It looks very very cool.
is it like a zip up thing where it
Yeah.
like, oh, dude, I love in action movies, specifically in like martial art action movies, when someone has like a flannel or like a coat that's like zipped open and they're moving and it's that thing's just flinging around them. So yeah,
hmm
dude, I'm all for that. I am all for that.
Yeah, for sure. And there was I think I looked Shang-Chi up on Twitter just to see like gifs and stuff from the trailer, but there's definitely some more of those bomber jackets that he's rocking throughout the different set pieces. But yeah, I'm looking at it
Excellent.
right now. Yellow bomber jacket, black sleeves, zipped all the way down. So
Sweet. I love it. Yeah.
mhm.
This trailer definitely helped skyrocket Shang-Chi to sort of one of my more anticipated movies
Mhm.
in the MCU. So yeah, I'm all for this. I think this will be a really great theater experience.
For sure. And worth noting also, the trailer had it showcased some like what looked like an ancient CGI battle that is probably a telling of a bunch of stuff. Like it's just going through maybe some history associated with what the plot of the movie is, maybe the Mandarin, but yeah. So I just thought that stood out to me of like, oh, we're probably going to be getting different time periods a little bit just to set the tone of maybe the power of the Ten Rings or something like that. But
Yeah, I do appreciate the sort of grandiose action that showed off the scene you were mentioning, and also a mix of that and also the sort of up close and personal martial arts action. And there was a gif of the actor Simu Liu, who was like flipping a knife and like actually did that, and I was incredibly impressed.
yeah, love a good knife flip.
Hell yeah.
Another thing that happened this week was the announcement that moving forward, Sony Pictures is going to be putting, I think, all of their Sony projects onto Netflix, but their Marvel productions like Venom, Spider Man, the Spider Man movies, Morbius, are going to be making their way to Disney Plus.
Yeah, so I think the time frame of this is it's either most or all of them go to Netflix, and then it has like that window of exclusivity, and then they go to Disney Plus. I believe
hmm
that's how it's working. But either way, eventually, yeah, we'll have like Venom and stuff like that on Disney Plus. So that's really cool. I don't know if they mentioned like previous stuff. So like, is Far From Home gonna be on Disney Plus or Homecoming? I don't know if we got word on that.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine they would be because the report that I was reading said that that's starting in 2022 is when they're going to be making their way over. So I imagine that, they want to have that entire Marvel catalog on there. So they'll probably do what they can to get the Spider-Man movies on Disney Plus because those, I'm sure, will do numbers for the streaming service. Everybody loves Spider-Man. So
Yeah, I sincerely hope so. I didn't I thought I might have read it as like our movies from 2022 onward will follow this trajectory, but if it is all of their past catalog, including those Sam Raimi movies, which hey, those are going to be very relevant very soon, it seems. I'm all in for that. I think this is great. I like having everything where it should be.
yeah, for sure. And it's pretty convenient, because they already have their divisions of separating what's canon and what's not. Recently, Star Wars added a bunch of stuff under a new banner as well. So if they get the rights to have the Raimi movies on there, which maybe they will, I don't know, they'd fit right next to the X-Men movies. So
Yeah, totally.
no issues there. There were a few other things that happened this week in Marvel news. Hawkeye has wrapped shooting. Jeremy Renner posted a picture, and I think Haley Steinfeld also posted something. He was bandaged up, like some Matt Fraction looking stuff. He had the white bandages all over his face, so
Very nice.
hopeful for that show.
Yeah,
We got some
totally.
casting news. Russell Crowe is going to be playing Zeus in Thor: Love and Thunder.
That's pretty great. I think that's pretty great casting. Give him a long white beard, some white hair. Go for it.
Yeah, yeah. Very, very interesting as well, because I know in the comics, at least, Marvel has mixed Greek and Norse mythology, which typically doesn't mix that much. God of War did that recently. But yeah, because I remember when we read Civil War, Hercules was a character that had that scene, I think, where somebody cloned Thor, and then that Thor blew something up, and Hercules was really pissed because Thor was like his best friend. So I've seen a lot of speculation that Hercules might be coming soon as well, if Zeus is in the mix. But
We read that for Excelsior in like the original run, and honestly, Christian, it's been so long. You could have just completely made up that sentence, and I would not know. I don't know if that's true what you just said, but I'm gonna believe you.
well, I only remember that because I did see a recap of what this could mean, and I was like, oh yeah, we did see that scene.
Yep.
But the other casting news that I think is very interesting is that Amelia Clarke has been cast in Secret Invasion, which is rumored to begin shooting this fall with Samuel L. Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn.
Hell yeah, I'm excited for the show. I love Amelia Clarke. I think she was excellent in Game of Thrones. So excited to see her. Anytime we get casting news for Secret Invasion, I'm like, so they're a Skrull? Probably, maybe not, but
So
yeah, it's cool.
the thing that I've seen a bit of speculation on, and I'm curious what you think about this. I've seen some people say, hey, the Skrulls, science, space, is she Sue Storm?
Ooh, we did not include her in our Fantastic Four discussion last week. That's a great one. That's a great choice.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that would make sense, if Sword and the Secret Invasion Skrulls cosmic stuff is going to be, in the background of everything moving forward, and maybe we build the Secret Wars eventually. I feel like the Fantastic Four, or at least part of them, should be involved with this, and having Sue Storm as the astro scientist, physicist, whatever that she is, involved here would make sense. And Amelia Clarke is a big enough name where I feel like she wouldn't probably just be like some random other person, Like I feel like
Yeah.
she might be sticking around.
She'd be like a mainstay in the MCU for sure. Yeah, people know her, and she is a very popular actor. So yeah, I think you're onto something there. I would love that. I think she's great. Imagine her in some chemistry with her and Rahul Kohli, because he has to be Mr. Fantastic.
Yes,
I'd love it. Big fan.
absolutely. On the rumor sphere, also, I never really trust when projects are like leaked, announced like this or anything. But people are saying that there's a Wolverine anthology series that's been greenlit for Disney Plus. I highly doubt that.
Yeah, we'll see about that one.
I've also seen a lot of people saying that, I'm only bringing this one up because I've seen a handful of outlets talking about it, but none of them I really recognized. That some of the Netflix characters and their actors are coming to the MCU, being Charlie Cox, John Bernthal, Kristen Ritter, and Vincent D'Onofrio across a couple different projects. Far From Home or No Way Home was one of them. I think people said Vincent D'Onofrio might have a cameo in Hawkeye. So again, I think this is something that a lot of us really want, but seems like it might be too good to be true. I don't know how you feel about that.
I think they can pick and choose at this point what is canon or not.
Yeah.
And if they want to say that Daredevil has existed and all of these characters have existed, but maybe not the storylines, or they honestly just could bring that back and incorporate that into the MCU because it already did adhere to the rules of the MCU. So I think that's possible. I also think they could just reboot any of the characters they want with the cast that they want. So if Charlie Cox comes back as Daredevil, but he is, the new Daredevil, I think they could probably do that too. So I feel like there's a lot of room for options of how they want to approach those types of characters. So I think that is probably more likely than the Wolverine anthology rumor. But it's one of those things where I'll believe it where I see it when I see it.
Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. I think that's probably the way they'll go about it. I know there's a lot of debate amongst the fandoms of like Kevin Feige didn't have a hand in these projects, so does he really care about them that much? But like, yeah, I think they see the fans there. If they want them in there, they'll do it. But I would love it. So we'll see what happens. But
Totally.
with that, I think it is time for us to discuss the finale of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 6, the grand finale to season 1, because it is very clear that we are getting a season 2.
Oh yeah.
Spoiler free. Let's hear what you thought of the finale, Jack. And I guess season overall.
Sure. Season overall, I'll start with that. I really enjoyed it. I think this show talked about a lot of things in terms of race that I was hoping for, and me personally, I think they achieved at least discussing that topic and the implications of Sam Wilson taking up the shield. I'm really glad that they didn't just dive into Sam being Captain America without, sort of broaching that topic, and I'm really glad they did. So on that front, I think they did a really good job with that, and with the whole show with Bucky, and there's some great characters in this as well. But unfortunately, with this episode at least, I kind of feel like it falls flat for me. I think like the finale for WandaVision and a lot of the MCU projects, I feel like this sort of suffers from the third act problem where nothing happening here is really all that interesting. It is sort of, unfortunately, boring action, save for a few moments. And I honestly feel like there's a lot of awkwardness with some of the threads that are being tied up and characters that at first I cared about, and by the end of this I really don't. And some bizarre transitions for some characters. I honestly feel like this episode in particular is probably my least favorite, and honestly kind of leaves a bit of a sore taste in my mouth for the show overall. I still really like the show, but yeah, this episode just kind of really didn't do it for me. What about you?
Yeah, so season overall, I'm really glad this project exists. It was great seeing these characters grow into their new roles in the MCU. I think they handled a lot of the topics in a front-facing way that I really wanted them to, and I didn't think they would, but glad they did. I think in the end, they were able to, I think, maybe play it safe for the finale. I don't know if that's, because I'm definitely hearing what you're saying, and I'm feeling similar things about it, but I think they stuck the landing, but I don't know if it was like super impressive or did anything to bolster what came before, I think is where I'm landing.
Yeah,
Like,
it seemed very predictable in a way.
yeah, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just like they didn't really it's the third act thing, right? It's like, okay, we did all of our character development, and now the final episode is just the last 40 minutes of Avengers 1, like
Yeah.
so.
Like
Uh
I feel like the previous episode did everything to set things up for this episode to knock it down. And like, you go into this episode being like, of course the villains will be defeated and the heroes will win because that's just, that's storytelling. But I feel like they just did it in such an unconvincing way, and there's I feel like there was just so many issues for me with this particular episode that I found absolutely baffling.
Yeah, well, why don't we get into spoilers? We can talk a little more about all this stuff. First, the suit. Big fan.
Excellent.
I really like it.
It's great. It's, from as far as I can tell, comic accurate to Captain America for Sam Wilson's Captain America in the comics. I think it looks great. It looks like Captain America, and I thought it was a great intro for Sam to, open up the window with the shield, dive in with the new wings, and it looks great. I agree.
Yeah, everything with Sam in the suit, all of his action, all of his stuff as Cap, I loved and was probably the highlight of the episode for me. Like everything that Sam did, I was really happy with. I think the entire episode.
Yeah, I agree too. I think the standout action set piece for me with him in the new suit is the helicopter sequence where he's essentially coordinating with a woman inside to take over the sticks from the pilot that he's about to rip out from his pilot seat. And we get the line, like, a little birdie told me you could fly. And it was Red Wing, like, sort of doing a weird sort of scan, reminded me of Winter Soldier in a way. But yeah, I thought that was great. And I agree. I think pretty much anything that Sam Wilson does in terms of his fighting, I think is great in this.
Yeah, and it was really great too, I think, seeing him using the shield with the wings because it's a new approach to Cap in terms of how we see Cap, how we look at Cap and all that, but it still feels like that's Captain America, Like even though he has gigantic wings and is flying around and everywhere, but he's still doing like the moves, And I think it fits really well. I was a little curious of like how are they gonna tackle the wings and the shield? Like, is it gonna look like it's clunky for him? But no, I think it looks very sleek. I was very impressed with the choreography for him, and I was loving anything he was doing this episode, from action to his big speech. So
yeah, totally
big fan of that. I mean, that aside, I don't think there's much to like break down about what they do story wise for like the plot, but there's I think the main discussion is based on the characters this week, right?
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about Bucky, or would you rather talk about the supporting cast?
Let's dive into Bucky.
Okay. I thought Bucky was good this episode. It was subtle because I do like that he was in a position where he was able to help people, and clearly that was like new for him, kind of, and it sort of teed up where we ended up with him later towards the end of the episode of him going back to Yori and confronting him about his past. So I thought Bucky's character growth and the resolution for things we set up earlier, it didn't get a lot of time, but and maybe we could have made the time if we trimmed out some of the action, but I'm still happy with where we ended up with Bucky.
Yeah, I agree. I think they handled both of the main characters very well. Bucky does get overshadowed a little bit, but I think that was for a good purpose.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. I really like the scene where he's helping people out of the truck and someone thanks him for saving them, and he hesitates for a moment and sort of reflects on it. He's like, "Oh wow, I'm in a position of being a hero." And yeah, like we said, he really hasn't had that moment since World War II. So yeah, I thought that was great, and he was following his therapist's instructions, it turns out, so that's nice. And yeah, like, I do agree. I feel like probably at the end it was kind of rushed. But I wasn't too concerned with that. Like, they got the point across.
Yeah.
I was very upset that he gave away Captain America's book. Like, get that back. Rip out the pages if you want. But man, that's like your year one touchstone to Cap. That was a little strange.
So yeah, overall I really like what they did with both Sam and Bucky the entire season, and in the last episode. I just think that if the action was trimmed up a little bit, we might have had a bit more room to breathe with that, because I don't even think like Bucky really had any moment to like think about it really. Like, I mean, for the audience at least, because it was just implied, right? Like, I don't think we really got to see how he felt about it after the fact. Like, he was making peace with it, sure, but like I did think that was one thing that suffered maybe from the third act issue that we brought up earlier.
Yeah, and you alluded to it earlier, but if we get a second season of this, which it seems like we will, I think the second season is more of a Bucky focus.
Me too.
And more of him, similar to how Sam sort of becomes Captain America and sort of adopts that role. I think season 2 hopefully would be, obviously we get the ramifications of Sam Wilson being Captain America now, and what that would entail, but also more of a focus on Bucky now being a rehabilitated man, trying to be a hero now, and doing that. So I think that we'll probably get that in season 2.
Yeah, because that was the biggest thing that surprised me, I think, is when at the end, which, very cool, a lot of us saw it coming, but it transitioned to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. I was like, love this, but at the same time, I thought, like, it felt like the way we left off with Bucky is like, okay, Winter Soldier's dead at this point. And I know nobody really came in to the point where he could have a new identity, so I do think that you're right. I think season 2 of this show is very much going to be about Bucky sort of finding his own hero persona, with the help of Sam and working together. But
yeah, I agree.
That's just an element of TV, right? Like, there's going to be things that get more of a focus later on, which I'm fine with. It didn't really bother me because I still like where we ended up with him. But
yeah,
Sam definitely needed all the time in this episode that he was given.
100%.
So,
one thing I found that was weird. This has to do with Bucky, so I figure it's probably good to mention it here. Him taking the phone call from Carly was, first of all, just bizarre. A flag smasher presumably being like, "Hey Bucky, got a phone call for you. It's from Carly." It's like, okay, that's awkward. And then he takes the phone call, and essentially it's him trying to empathize with her in a way, which obviously doesn't work. And I just felt was entirely unnecessary in that scene. And was just so. There were points in this episode, that was one of them, where I was like, "What is even happening here? Why is this even a scene? This feels unneeded."
So, I thought it was an interesting premise, because it's like, I never thought of it the entire season of like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess they do have a bit of a similarity of being super soldiers that were sort of lost themselves for a cause. And I thought that was interesting, but honestly, Jack, now that you're saying it felt awkward, I didn't get that vibe, but I haven't read much about this yet, but I have seen some discussion and some articles about the impacts that COVID had on this show, and I think maybe this grand finale may have been pretty heavily impacted, because we know there was originally supposed to be a pandemic.
Yep.
And maybe Carly was involved with maybe that gas that they shot into that room was actually the actual disease that they just were like, oh, we're not going to say that it's the actual like virus gas, but it could just be gas. And then,
yeah, that was weird too. Like,
yeah.
Why don't the men with guns just be like, all right, time to move? Why do you need to throw a smoke grenade in the middle of the room?
Yeah, so I do think that this show's finale probably had to be retooled a little bit, because of the pandemic. And that phone call to me rings as a consequence of that, where like, okay, how do we recontextualize everything that's going on here, um, and make the character decisions that are progressing after that phone call make sense? And I think their best solution was like, okay, well, we can't get Carly on set today because of regulations. So Sebastian, you're just gonna be on the phone, and you're gonna spend some time being distracted, and then she'll say something, and then you'll go get on your motorcycle. So I
Yeah,
feel like that might be a byproduct of COVID.
100%. And honestly, I feel like the whole Flag Smashers arc was affected by that. I've seen like lots of videos of people talking about it and articles as well.
Yeah.
Like you're made to empathize with them, but the like I feel like they do a lot of telling rather than showing. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you don't get a good sense of the state of the Flag Smashers in this because it seems very convincing to a lot of people globally where they have they have an app where they just are like, all right, let's do this. Let's team up right now. And I don't feel like we got a good sense, and I feel like this episode sort of highlights this idea. We don't really get a good sense of why the Flag Smashers are doing what they're doing. We only get that through dialogue. We don't get to see them living in either squander or living in, you know, like we see them living in these like European like apartment complexes a little bit, but I don't feel like that conveys that these people have been affected as they have been, and that I think is probably due to maybe some of the reshoots or some of the re-editing that they've done because Mama Danya was the driving force for Carly, and we really don't even know who she is. It's just kind of odd at this point.
Yeah, I think for me, the Flag Smashers had a lot of potential, and I think it was kind of squandered in the
Yeah.
end. Because presumably, by the end of the episode, are all of the super soldier elements of the Flag Smasher, are they all dead?
Yep.
So
Very,
like,
very nicely dead. Tied up
yeah,
real nicely.
so I mean, I know that her whole thing and everything that Sam was saying at the end was like speaking to the followers and how people believe in that cause, which like sure, and I think that'll be interesting again moving forward in the MCU, seeing like what her efforts in that group bring on. But like, yeah, I don't know. It just feels like it kind of whimpered out, you know? Because like I think specifically in the finale they didn't really get a chance to have that feeling of this is a grassroots movement that really believes in this, you know? Like I get they did the TV broadcast and maybe that was code regulation, but like I'm definitely with you where I feel like the Flag Smashers were a little bit whatever in the end.
Right. And we see some of the super soldier Flag Smashers sort of be hesitant to Carly's orders, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually they just agree to follow her. But I feel like we didn't get the follow up that that scene in particular necessitated. Right, like it seemed like we probably should have had maybe a follow up from them being like, look, Carly, like our mission is just, but your tactics are doing this the wrong way, and like I don't know that it seemed like that scene didn't need to be there, and because they didn't follow up on it, it seemed there was just that was one of the awkward pieces for me.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Something that's made awkward in hindsight is Sharon for me.
Ugh, 100%.
Like it definitely you wrote Sharon in this show, and maybe I'm just stupid, but like I feel like you're writing her as an agent of this person to the point where it's like very clearly she can't actually be the power broker. So when the reveal happens and she's like, "Yeah, I'm the power broker," it's like, okay, like we all thought that for a bit, but that kind of like got squandered after a bit. Like I don't know. I feel like it's weird to have an official title reveal of like, oh, I'm the power broker when she's been making decisions this whole season that's been like, well, is she maybe, it just was it felt like a really weird reveal to me.
I think the reveal just falls so flat. If at the front of the season we saw Sharon doing some very shady stuff and involved in sort of the life of crime that she was in Madripoor, and was like, you know what, I'm the power broker. I think if we knew that up front, that would be fine. But the fact that the show was sort of dangling that surprise over the audience's heads, and then we already saw Sharon doing all the shady stuff, so by the time we get that surprise, it's really not a surprise at all.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this before, like, if they did that, that'd be just silly writing, and it ends up being silly writing. I don't think that it makes sense, obviously. It's justified, but it feels strange, and I don't want to say, like, obviously we had expectations like everyone else did throughout WandaVision, and our expectations obviously weren't met with some of the theories that we were anticipating, but we still enjoyed what we got by the end of that. And even though our theories weren't right about the power broker, which is totally fine, I just feel like the writing of the show doesn't hold up with that reveal in particular.
Yeah, because you're absolutely correct. The thing is, I'm not disappointed really that it wasn't Ross or anybody like that. Like,
Yeah.
the thing that's more of an issue for me is like, what do we gain by having that reveal there when we kind of already expected it was her and it would have been too obvious to be her because we go so long seeing her doing shady things and pulling strings where it's like, I mean, if they're not saying it's her, it's probably not her, right? Like, it was weird. I don't know if you gain anything by having that reveal. Even if she ended up like being the power broker the whole time, probably better left unsaid. Like, I think you take that line out, you don't lose anything, you know?
Yeah. I'm also unclear of her motivations. Like, why hire Baltrock in this? Like, I feel like we don't really get a resolution with that.
Yeah.
I like, her whole thing is just to accumulate power, just because she was scorned a few years ago. And I was wondering, like, the show seemingly presented that she lived in Madripoor for the past 5 years, but then one of my friends was telling me that she showed up at the end of Avengers Infinity War, maybe during the Captain Marvel scene, where she appeared to be blipped. And it's like, how did this happen in the course of from 2016 to maybe 2018, and then she was blipped and then came back 5 years and still had all this power? I was very confused by that.
Yeah, because the post credits also, it's like she gets her pardon and she's walking out. She calls somebody on the phone and saying like, "Oh, I'm in," basically. So like, it still feels like she's reporting to someone there, kind of, or like maybe it's a partner. I don't know, man. Like, it definitely. I don't even know what to think of it. It's just like the most obvious thing, and they teased it as a reveal this whole time, and there wasn't really payoff for it. And
Yeah.
even self-contained, it's like exactly what you said. We've seen her doing all this shady stuff so far, so it's like in our head that's a possibility. So when you do that big sweeping moment of like it's you, it's like, well, sure, like I
Yeah.
guess, yeah,
I I genuinely think the end credit scene of her talking to the senator, getting her old job back, and then essentially saying, "Let's get to work." I took that as her maybe talking to Val.
yeah,
Um,
me too.
I honestly think that's one of the worst end credits in the MCU. That in terms of the end credits that progress a story and like leaves a tease, I did not care for that at all. And I also think it is essentially Sharon operating within the U.S. government in the same way that Hydra did inside of Shield. And I think that's like that drastic of a flip in her character, where she in Winter Soldier she was in Shield and she stood against Hydra. Now she is essentially acting in a similar manner that Hydra did within Shield. I think that is so bizarre, and now that I'm thinking about it, I do not think that is justified in her character at all. And I truly can't believe that she has turned that far where she is operating in that same capacity that Hydra did. I think that's crazy.
I do think Sharon potentially being a villain is something that's very interesting, and I would like to see, more development in that thread of her character. But I do think that for sure we don't have enough of the motivation, and even like when we meet up with her with Sam and Bucky early in the season, right? Like she just seems tired. She doesn't really seem like scorned that much or anything. Like
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't seem too upset, and maybe that was just a cover because she wanted the pardon so she could just progress further on. But again, I think Sharon still has potential, but I don't know if I don't know if it was like convincing enough of a like reveal, because the thing is like it's just kind of all over the place, right? Because she's playing a double agent kind of, and then not, and then she is, and I don't know if we had enough time with her this season to have any of that have like a meaningful payoff.
Yeah, I feel really bad for the actor portraying her because I genuinely think the MCU sort of fumbled the ball with her character. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of think she's a broken character at this point. I think she was utilized really well in Winter Soldier, partially in Civil War. Obviously, the kiss is ridiculous, and I kind of feel really bad because the reaction to that was so severe that they sort of just like, all right, well, I guess we're not going to talk about her anymore until they
Mm-hmm.
do. Um, and now it's just a total character flip that I think is just beyond the means of believability for me at least. And yeah, honestly, I'm not sold on her character at this point.
Speaking of a character flip, something I've seen some people talk about online is Isaiah, specifically with the statue, because I think the claim I saw was like it was inconsistent because earlier on he'd said he didn't want to be a piece of propaganda for a country that scorned him that way, and then in the end Sam is like, I got a statue for you, buddy. But like I didn't see it that way personally, but I don't know how much say I have on that, but it felt consistent enough for me, I think, because that scene with him and Sam in the garden first, like I really loved that, and it seemed like, the speech that Sam gave affected him at least in a way that made him have a little bit of hope again. So I don't know. I thought it was all right. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think Sam maybe cemented and reiterated the idea that, and like what you said, who are you and I to say about to speak to this, but like that it cemented the idea to Isaiah that like icons are really important, and I feel like Sam adopting the mantle of Captain America and handling it so well, and Isaiah seeing the speech that Sam gave, and then eventually Sam bringing him to his statue as an icon within that museum. I feel like that was tied together fairly well, and
Mm.
you get the sense like this happens in stories. Like a character says one thing and then something happens to them, and then they don't necessarily fully believe in that anymore. Um,
Yeah, Luke Skywalker.
uh, top of my head, well done. That was the turn, right? Something has to happen to necessitate the turn, and I think seeing Sam Wilson as Captain America and hearing what he had to say, and the fact that the Patch Act was being reversed, I feel like that sold Isaiah to accept that.
Yeah, I think on a strictly like character writing motivations term, I think it made sense to me and it felt like it was a believable transition. I did see some people not liking that though. But
That's fair. I won't argue that too much, but for me at least, I was convinced.
sure. What about good old Johnny Walker?
Honestly, I liked where in certain ways I like where John Walker ends up. Um, because last week essentially it was like I guess he's irredeemable at this point. And to an extent he still is, but I liked how John Walker sort of ends up understanding what he did and sort of becoming a hero in a sense where he has the option of chasing down Carly or saving the people on a truck, and he literally just throws the shield away and he chooses to save the people. In that sequence, at least, I feel like that was pretty powerful, and I feel like he has one of the best arcs of the show. Obviously, Sam and Bucky have some pretty astounding arcs, but I honestly, I really like his trajectory. What about you?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because last time we saw him with Sam and Bucky, they were like disgusted with him basically. And I I think John Walker is very interesting and something I can't fully place how I feel about his character in this universe because like originally with the end of that episode it's like wow, okay, they're commenting on a lot of things here, and then we get the follow up, we get the consequence, and then I think him in his discharge meeting in that Senate building also made sense. And it was like, okay, I see what you're doing here. You're commenting on like the system and how that pumps out people that do these atrocities because of how the system works. And then I think it's interesting having this character who basically committed murder in cold blood walk off no problem because we see that happen, because they are tying that world to our world in many ways. So I definitely can't shake that comparison.
Yeah.
But I do think that John Walker out the gate was introduced as a character who was in over his head, has a lot of issues mentally because of the United States military and the way they treat their soldiers. And there's definitely a lot of layers. And I am glad he chose to save the people instead of going to kill Carly because while I don't know if he's fully redeemable, I think he's a very interesting character and is playing a very interesting role in the MCU. And going full blown maniacal bad guy, I'm getting revenge on you, abandoning all those years as, fighting for the people, that he would throw that away because I could have easily seen it go either way in that part, honestly.
Yeah, 100%. I'm like, there's still awkwardness associated with his character. I'm glad they went down the route of he did this horrible thing, and he's, I guess, trying to make up for it and looking back on what he was before taking the serum and trying to square that in a way, like what you said. So I did appreciate that. I did find it very strange about people's outlook on John Walker and where he stands right now. Bucky and him have some chirps back and forth that is playful.
Yeah,
and
that was the weird thing to me.
Like, why is John Walker should have? It feels like he should still hold a grudge against Sam and Bucky, but he doesn't. Like, maybe I guess the team up shot of them, being all together. I feel like maybe we could have had like a 2-3 line conversation being like explaining why they're together, and we didn't get that. So that was a little strange.
Yeah, because I think like there is that nod at the end, so it's like it seems like they're at an understanding. John is like, okay, I did mess up. Sam's a real good man.
He realizes like that's the real Cap.
Yes. So again, on that level, I do think Walker is very interesting. I'm glad he's not gone because I do think there's more to explore with him. And honestly, you talked about having a weak post-credit scene. I kind of wish that the thing with him and Val and his wife, the U.S. agent reveal, I wish that was a post-credit scene, honestly.
Yeah, even that still for me was very awkward because they're in the Senate chambers for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't think Val is a U.S. operative. I'll tell you that right now. Unless she is. I don't think she is. And they're in the empty U.S. I think they're in the Capitol or some sort of government building. And he walks out with the U.S. Agent armor on. And then Val is like, things are about to get weird. We're not going to need a Captain America. we're going to need a U.S. agent. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? What does that mean? I know that's his name from the comics.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? What does that role even entail?
I don't know. Do you mean like the role of U.S. agent?
Yeah, like I guess obviously he's going to be a tool, I would assume.
Yeah, more like a SEAL Team 6, Black Ops, off the record type thing, I think.
Like I almost wish they didn't say his title. I wish they were just going to say we're going to need like someone who can get their hands dirty. Something like that, you know? It just was bizarre.
His other name is Super Patriot, so I don't know which one you would have preferred her to say.
Neither. Absolutely neither. I'll tell you that.
We don't need a Captain America. We're going to need a Super Patriot.
Yeah. Jesus.
Like, I think she sold it, right? Because it's Julie Louis-Dreyfus. So, like,
sure.
To me, it came across as like she's this quirky girl who's in charge of this whole operation, and she's like, I just thought of that, like.
Yeah.
That's how I read it, because she does seem like an oddball when she's first introduced a couple episodes back, right?
Sure. Yeah, totally.
So, yeah. Overall, though, I'm excited to see what's next with his character, because, again, it seems like we are building a team. I don't know if it's the Thunderbolts anymore, because, Ross isn't here. Maybe they're doing the Thunderbolts, but Sharon's the one who's in charge as the government agent who secretly does this.
Yeah, which makes no sense.
Yeah, because why would they be called the Thunderbolts then? Because that's his nickname. I don't know.
I'm just confused, like what you just said with Sharon's motivation and all this. Like, why is she after super soldiers and the serum? Like, we get that the power broker wants that, and we find out that's Sharon, but why? Like, she even says at the end of the episode, like, oh, I guess the super serum soldier isn't in play anymore, but we have all these weapons for anyone who wants them. It's like, okay, I guess you're just sort of selling out yourself, and I don't know. I'm just upset in a lot of ways about this episode.
I think mainly I'm just confused.
Yeah.
But I'm not confused enough where it hurt the episode that much for me. Like, I saw IGN gave it a 5, and again, I don't understand that.
I'm more towards that. I don't know if I'd give it a 5, but it's definitely,
I'd probably give it like a 7, 7.5 maybe.
I'd probably go like 6. I'd probably go like 6 okay. Or 7. I feel like this is one of the weaker. Save for like anything with Sam, like what you said. This is a very emotional episode in a lot of ways, and I think they nail that pretty well. But the action was, I don't think, too outstanding. I don't think they utilized his wingsuit all that well, except for the helicopter scene. And yeah, so the motivations for a lot of the characters for some characters at least, just makes no sense.
Yeah. Do you think if we didn't, because I wasn't expecting a power broker reveal in this episode. If anything, I thought we would get it as a post-credits thing. And I'm wondering, because you and I were on the same page with Bucky, of like, I would have liked to see more from Bucky, but I'm pretty sure that's season 2. Yeah. If the stuff with Sharon and the power broker, if that was just unsaid and then we picked up on that and that was season 2, would you feel better about that, do you think? Because I think I would.
I don't know. I truly just don't understand Sharon's character. And I know that there's probably supposed to be a mystique and mystery sort of associated with her. Like what you said, like she's always been a double agent in some way or another, and that's still tied to her character right now. But I don't understand what her motivations are. I truly am at a loss. I don't know why she's seeking this power other than, the U.S. government threw me away and I had to hide out here, so I'm just going to amass power because I'm angry. I guess that's a motivation. It's not all too convincing to me, and I truly don't care to follow up on that, Christian. I really don't. And I think that probably will be season 2, and I do not care. I could care less.
Yeah, I think where I was coming from more is like, don't even address any of that stuff in this final episode. Keep that for season 2, where you would have room to like flesh it out, explain the motivations, get more inside her head, rather than this weird tease that was going on for 6 episodes that I think just kind of happened, you know?
It did, yeah. I was talking to my friend Arena about this, but she was more along the lines of the whole show in its entirety wasn't very cause and effect based. It was more things happening just because they happened. And I disagree with that slightly, but I totally understand that viewpoint where things just happened because they were written that way and it didn't seem all too convincing. And yeah, for me at least, the finale, it sort of makes me think a little bit differently about the show in its whole, even though I do like the show in its whole, and I think it ranks somewhat highly for me. But yeah, dude, I just leaves off on a bad note for me.
Yeah, I don't want to slap a ranking on it at the moment because I do want a bit of time away from this. I might rewatch the show in its whole entirety, but I think last week there was a world where it was like maybe top 5, but right now I think it could hit like a number 10.
I ranked it against my 2021
Mm-hmm.
re-rank, and let me pull it up actually. I put it, this is like first blush, so obviously it could change. I put it at number 12 below Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and
Okay.
above Far From Home. Because while I love Far From Home, I I think the topics that the show addresses are very welcome for the scale of the MCU to tackle, and I think in many ways it does tackle them well. So on that level, I appreciate that. And there's a lot of things I really, really love about the show, but I don't think it came together in the end very well in this particular episode, and that sort of knocked it down a few pegs for me.
Yeah, that's why I want to give it a bit more time, I think, because there's so much. I really had little complaints about the show at all in the past few weeks. And I think the only thing is I was really banking on the finale to like slam dunk it and tie everything together super well, and it got a layup, you know, like
Sure.
it it didn't nail it, but I think for the main character for Sam, I think they nailed his stuff, so that's enough to be like, okay, even if some of the stuff in the finale wasn't very impressive or consistent, um, it doesn't detract from what the rest of the show does. So I do want to give it some more time. I think realistically, it's within the top 10, maybe on the outskirts of it, but I really enjoyed the show personally, and I'm super excited for season 2.
I do too. I really, as a whole, I really enjoy the show. I don't think I disliked this episode, but I certainly didn't like it. And I'm excited to follow up with these two characters, and I love how, like, the tease at the end is almost not so official confirmation, right? Like, that has to be them saying this is going to be season 2, right? Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So that prospect has me excited. What
Hmm.
doesn't have me excited is following up with Sharon Carter as the power broker. Um, and like what you said, maybe there is a way for them to delve into her character more and explore her motivations. But for this season, at least, I was not convinced by the end of this, for her at least. And the Flag Smashers, I think, like what you said, I think they kind of squandered it. I feel like at first I was really glad that they were making them sympathetic, and I always appreciate heroes learning from the villains. Um, but I feel like this might have been we should have just had more time with them, and I think we should have seen their play a little bit more, and would have helped the audience understand what they were going through.
Do you think, because this show, I know the episodes were longer, but it was 2 episodes shorter than WandaVision, do you think it could have benefited from 2 more, or do you think that it was good where we got it?
Maybe I feel like this probably could have benefited from like an hour and a half finale, maybe,
Yeah.
because this I know some people thought that maybe the show felt a little bit rush overall, but I I think it was paced pretty well. I feel like everything was set up very nicely in the penultimate episode. And then I honestly feel like the end of this episode felt a little rushed. Like, we get another montage of Sam back with his family, and we don't really check in on them in terms of dialogue. I feel like I would have maybe liked another scene or two of what was happening with them. I definitely agree with you that I think we probably should have seen a little bit more of Bucky and him dealing with the ramifications of him being the Winter Soldier and telling, Yori, and seeing that thread explored a little bit more. So, yeah, I would say if not an episode or two, definitely a longer finale.
Yeah, because I was super surprised. Like, I woke up feeling terrible today because of, the old serum. And it took me a bit, and I was like, I should queue up the show so I'm not, like, late for a recording or anything. And because I imagined it was going to be long, and I looked at it, it was like, I think 51 minutes. I was like, okay, sure. We'll see what happens. But, yeah, like, I think at the end of it all, I finished the episode, I was like, that was good. And that's how that was it. I was just like, that was good. It was good. The same way I feel about some other Marvel projects where, like, I don't leave it feeling any certain way other than, like, I'm glad I watched that. It had some enjoyable parts. And the rest of what the show has done, I think, is exceptional. And here we go. We got most of the threads tied up. Some of them not clean. Some of them not satisfying. But yeah, it was a kind of fine finale.
Yeah. We haven't talked about Zemo yet, and his very capable butler.
Yeah, that was a little funny to me.
So we see, like, the super soldier flag smashers who once, like, almost in a way defied Carly or were hesitant to follow her, get in a truck very neatly and nicely. And then somehow it blows up because it seems that Zemo's butler was ordered by Zemo to, like, place C4 or something on the truck, and then just, like, watches it from afar with his white gloves on. And there's just so many leaps of logic for him to do that, and for him to even get to... there was a lot going on there, man.
Jack, what if I told you that I had no idea who it was until I saw the white gloves?
Yep. I thought the same thing. I was like, who's this old dude? And I was like, oh, that is Zemo's butler. And they just did that. Like, silly. Just another silly, awkward thing where... And then we get Zemo in the jail cell just listening to the radio and being like, all right, cool. And that's it. That's where we leave off with him. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Zemo's always a calculating guy, so I would believe that he'd be able to pull the strings from within a prison.
Sure.
But it was very strange. I was like, wait, what? It was the butler?
A thing I noticed, I could be totally wrong, but you hear this voice twice where there's a radio announcer talking, like, news announcer at the beginning of the episode talking about, like, how the senators or whoever, the GRC, are sort of trapped by the flag smashers. And then Zemo's listening to a radio in his jail cell. And I swore, Christian, that was the voice actor of Master Miller from MGS5.
Wait, really?
I really think it was. Like, go back and listen to it. Maybe if it isn't him, it sounds eerily similar to Master Miller.
Okay. Huh. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely go back and listen to that because that would be very funny.
Yeah.
If that's the case. But, I mean, did you want to say anything else about Sam's speech? Because I feel like that was the only other highlight for me.
Yeah.
Really.
I know you were wondering, like, whether we'd have enough time to get that speech, and I'm glad we got it. And honestly, I feel like they hammered home the show's themes in that one speech, and it felt genuine. And obviously anything that Sam was saying, I feel like it was well earned, and I'm glad he got the chance to be Captain America and say those things. And I appreciated John Walker sort of learning from Sam in that situation, where he said something along the lines of, like, I'm always going to be hated. Like, people will always look at me and I will always be judged because of who I am, but I'm still going to do that. And then John Walker sort of like looks down sheepishly because he's like, oh man, like I didn't consider that. And yeah, I feel like that speech warranted the change for John Walker and also the GRC to change their decision on the Patch Act.
Yeah, I also liked it because on a also superficial level, love a Captain America movie that ends on a speech. So Sam in his first bout as Cap, wrapping up his first project film as Cap, with a good old speech. Big fan of that because Winter Soldier, he's got. I don't think he ends on a speech, but he does have the one in the Triskelion, the Shield headquarters, and then Civil War. He narrates he has a speech at the end.
Hell yeah!
So definitely love when Cap gives a good speech, and that was a pretty good speech. I thought that, like you said, captured what the show was going for in the past few weeks.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Well, I know we gave final thoughts and everything. You said you ranked it at number 12. I'm curious to see how we feel a week removed because we're entering a slight bit of a Marvel drought for a couple weeks, which is interesting considering that it's funny to look at what now 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks as a drought compared to what droughts have been in the past for Marvel. But it's interesting because we're so used to now just having Marvel every week, basically, except for that one off week. But yeah, we got a ways to go before Loki. So
yeah, June 11th, right?
I believe so. Yeah. Do you think we're gonna get an assembled doc for next week?
I hope so because I think that's just a really cool insight into the Disney Plus projects. We got that with The Mandalorian twice, and then we got it with WandaVision. And even if they are sort of superficial and the cast is always like, oh, I loved making this. This was a great time. And it is, it's Disney produced, so obviously it's sort of supposed to be, in a way, a marketing opportunity for these things. But either way, we still get like sort of the behind the scenes look. And I think those are cool. And yeah, I think it'd be really interesting. You want to mention the COVID stuff you and I were talking about off screen?
Sure, yeah. So this show, more than WandaVision, was heavily impacted by COVID because, it was always intended to be the first show to hit, and Black Widow was going to tee it up, which in hindsight makes a lot of sense because people think that Julia Louis-Dreyfus is also in Black Widow. So her showing up randomly probably would have made a bit more sense. But the beginning of Phase 4 has been altered pretty drastically by COVID-19. So, like, seeing this show, maybe on a documentary level, talking about it in some capacity, I'd be very interested in hearing. Even if it's not super, super heavy or anything, just talking about the challenges of the reshoots. I don't think they'd speak upon the pandemic aspect that they took out of the show at all, but maybe just the challenges of like having to do reshoots, having to do fight sequences. I don't know. There's a lot more hand-to-hand stuff in this than there was in WandaVision. So yeah, I'm very curious. I would love that in the form of an assembled documentary, but we'll have to wait until next week, I guess.
Yeah, that for me, I know it probably won't be the highlight, but I would like for that to be like a pretty significant chunk of like, hey, this is. I feel like that's an important thing to talk about for history's sake, right? Like you have this documentary on Disney Plus for presumably future generations to look back on and be like, hey, this was a production during a severe time for the entire globe. And this is how it impacted this small thing on a, smaller level compared to, what else, how COVID was affecting the world in general. But I think that would be interesting. And I think you're right. We probably won't see too much of that because The Mandalorian had, I saw people in masks with around Rosario Dawson because I think the production of that was around the time of COVID, on the onset of COVID, and we had people in masks in WandaVision as well, and they did not address that in either documentary. So maybe we get a little bit more people talking about it because it was more of a impactful situation for the show. But yeah, I agree. It probably won't be the main thing that they're talking about.
Yeah, and I did browse Twitter a little bit, before the show, and I saw they're already teeing up Loki, so maybe we would have heard about an assembled doc by now. Maybe they were like, hey, we're just not going to do one because there's no way for us to not talk about COVID with our behind-the-scenes footage. So, maybe they just really don't want to address it. But regardless, I think it would be very interesting. So
Sure.
That, I think, is going to do it for Falcon and the Winter Soldier Season 1. But next week we'll see what type of Marvel content comes out of the woodwork. And until then, Jack, where can the agents of Excelsior find you?
Sure. You can follow me on social media at FascinatedJack. Christian, myself, and our friends Kevin and Omar have a podcast called The Long Play Club. And right now we're going through Metal Gear Solid 4. We just finished up Act 2. On Monday, you should be hearing our reactions to that. So if you want to follow along with that show, play the game along with us, or just listen to the show, you can find that on youtube.com/joyclicks or on podcast services of your choice. What about you, Christian?
Sure, you can follow me on Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok at Chun2D2 on all of those outlets. I have been doing some Falcon Fat Dubs content on the TikTok, but now, Bad Batch is coming up, so we're shifting back to Star Wars probably for a little bit.
We'll be getting some more fat dubs in that regard.
Of course. And if you want to follow this show, you can check it out at ExcelsiorJC on Twitter, youtube.com/joyclicks for the video version of the show, and audio services like Apple Podcasts and Spotify for the audio version. If you can rate or review the show on your given platform, it would mean a lot, be very appreciated, because it takes a quick second to rate 5 stars if you enjoy the show. And if you want to get involved further, patreon.com/joyclicks at the $1 and $5 tiers. $5 tier gets you producer credit on all of our podcasts, like Chris Sakas and Aaron Easton. So thank you very much. And that is going to do it for this week's Excelsior. Next week, again, we'll see what the hell happens with this game, with Marvel news. Maybe we get a new trailer for something. We're probably due for a No Way Home trailer pretty soon, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think that is maybe a summer drop. Like,
Sure.
Spider-Man's always associated with July 4th. For some, he's very American tied.
For some reason.
It's very strange.
That was a Sony decision 20 years ago, and it just stuck.
Yeah, it's really bizarre if you don't realize this. There's always a shot of Spider-Man standing in front of a American flag in every Spider-Man movie. It is very strange. But regardless, he's usually Far From Home was billed on the July 4th weekend, so I can see
Homecoming.
And yeah, I didn't even realize that. Yeah, and Homecoming.
And Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay, I guess this all makes sense. So I could totally see, in lieu of the movie coming out then, a trailer coming out at that time. So that's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because any movie that deals with the Spider-Verse has to be December. So.
Yes.
Until then, though, Excelsior.
Excelsior.